She was being yanked like livestock, face down through a dry wash outside Skull Valley, Arizona. Blood stuck in her hair, one eye puffed shut, skin scraped raw across the stones, a rope knotted around her ankle so tight it could bruise, could snap bone. The rider never glanced back. He sat his horse, steady like he was hauling a sack of feed, not a living woman. That kind of cruelty burns into you. You don't turn from it. Not if there's any soul left inside. Caleb Hart saw it. He'd been riding the ridge in the white-hot Arizona morning, same as always. Fence posts to mend, a water line to check. Nothing that mattered yesterday. Nothing that would matter by nightfall. But that moment, yeah, that mattered. The instant he spotted the girl jolting and dragging behind a saddle, dust choking off her cries, something deep in him snapped awake. He wasn't playing hero. Not anymore. Not since he put his wife in the ground and buried half his heart with her. He didn't go out hunting for the world to fix. But some things you don't ride past. Some things step straight into your path and demand an answer. So Caleb did what any man should. He raised his rifle, pulled a breath, and squeezed the trigger. The rider toppled from the saddle like a cut rope. The girl crumpled into the dust, limp as a doll with its strings torn free. Caleb swung down fast. His boots thudded hard. He ran quicker than he had in years. Her face was a mess, skin torn, lips split, dirt ground into every line. But her eyes found him, and the fear had drained out. What was left was done. "You came," she whispered, and he nodded because that was all he had. Caleb didn't talk on the ride back. I didn't need to. The girl, Mara, he'd learn later, sat slumped in front of him on the saddle, barely holding on, one arm hanging, her cheek leaning into his chest like it was the one solid thing left. Every bump made her flinch. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. Now and then, though, she clutched a fistful of his coat, like checking he hadn't vanished. By the time they reached his cabin, the sun was sliding behind the ridge. The porch boards groaned beneath his boots. The place smelled of dust, ash, horse, home, more or less. He didn't ask if she could walk. He lifted her down, careful as he could, carried her inside, set her by the hearth. He grabbed his cleanest towel and a bowl of water. One eye was swollen and dark. Her lip was split wide. Dirt clung to dried blood like she'd been dragged through hell backward. Still, there was a steadiness in her, beautiful in the way someone is after living through what no one should. She opened her mouth like words were coming, but they didn't. So he dipped the towel and washed her face slowly, gently, like patching cracked glass. At last she found her voice, rough, scraped. The man he shot worked for her uncle. She tried to run. They were going to sell her like a horse at auction. Caleb didn't push for more. He'd heard enough. Some folks don't need to tell the whole road to hell. They just need someone willing to walk them back out. He gave her the bed and took the floor. He didn't sleep much. Mostly he listened to the wind shake the shutters and the quiet in and out of her breath. Morning came, and she was up first, still sore and bruised, but standing at his stove making coffee. For the first time in a long while, he didn't feel so alone. That week, Mara stayed quiet. She swept the cabin, brushed down his horse like she'd known the animal for years, hauled water from the creek with a limp and a stubborn chin. Caleb didn't pry. He watched from a distance, the way you watch a wildfire decide whether it will die out or burn what's left. The bruises lightened, purple to yellow to skin again. But her posture told more than any wound, like part of her still braced for a hand to yank her back by the hair. On the fourth morning, she stepped outside while he split wood. "I don't want to run no more," she said low. He set down the axe, wiped sweat from his brow. "You?" "Sure." She nodded. "I got no one else. I'm tired of leaving pieces of myself everywhere I go." He didn't say a lot. He looked at her a long second and said, "Then we ought to build something worth staying for." But peace is short out here, especially when yesterday rides faster than tomorrow. 2 days later, a rider came up the South Trail. He didn't knock, didn't call out, just watched from the trees like a buzzard waiting for something to fall. Caleb knew that look, trouble with spurs. He walked out slow, rifle easy against the doorframe. The man tipped his hat. His face was cracked like old boot leather. Heard tell of a girl gone missing. Family's worried. Caleb didn't blink. Ain't nothing missing here. The man spat. We'll see. Then he turned and rode back the way he came. It didn't mean it was finished. It meant it had just begun. Inside, Mara stood by the hearth, one hand set on the old rifle in the corner. She didn't speak, just met Caleb's eyes like she already knew. He held her gaze. Whatever came, they'd face it together. And if that blend of grit and grace doesn't light something in you, you might check your pulse. Stories like this aren't about neat bows. They're about what's worth standing for. If you've come this far, maybe you're the kind who believes in standing, too. So don't just swipe past. Stick around. Tap that subscribe button like it owes you rent, because what's coming next, you'll want to see. The sun was already burning over the hills when it went down. No warning, only the wind rustling the tall grass. Caleb was tightening the last rail on the south fence, thinking about lunch and maybe a nap when the dust rose. 3 riders, slow and deliberate, shapes against the glare. He didn't need names. Men like that don't carry names, they carry threats. The one in front wore a red scarf on his arm and had eyes like dead wood. He didn't climb down. He just sat tall, staring at the house, at Mara. Caleb stepped out, calm but alert. The man spoke at last. We were sent to fetch something that doesn't belong to you. Caleb didn't blink. She's not a thing, and she's not yours. The man smiled, but it wasn't a real smile, just stretched skin over spite. Maybe she came here on her own. Don't change where she's meant to be. Mara had heard enough. She stepped out of the barn shade, steady and sure, a rifle cradled, like she'd been born holding it. I meant to be right where I choose, she said. And I ain't going back. Her voice didn't tremble. The men traded looks. One reached his hip. Caleb didn't move quickly, but his palm rested on his revolver, stone steady. The leader tugged his reins, spat dust. This ain't over. They turned together and rode off, hooves drumming the hard ground, swallowed by their own dust. They'd be back. Of course they would. Caleb looked over at Mara. She didn't say a word. She stood there with the weight of it in her chest and the sun hot on her shoulders. They both knew. Next time, there'd be no talking. They returned at first light. 5 riders now. Not slow, not sneaky, just fury and purpose, pounding downhill like they wanted to split the world. Caleb was ready. Rifle in hand, eyes clear, not fearless, just steady. Mara stood in the barn's shadow again, the same rifle her daddy had given her, the same fire burning under the fading bruise. But something in her had shifted. She wasn't hiding. She wasn't waiting for someone else to make it right. She was done being taken. The first shot cracked the morning like thunder. Then everything turned to dust and motion. Caleb caught one through the sleeve. Mara hit the dirt, rolled, fired back. It didn't last long. Men like that are good at scaring folks, not so good when people stand up. When the smoke cleared, the silence hit like a wave. Caleb's shirt was torn, blood thin on his arm. Mara's hands shook, but they were both on their feet. Later, while the light went gold, he fixed the gate and she stirred the beans. Her palms were scraped, her arms sore. Still, she smiled. Peace doesn't always show up by itself. Sometimes you build it with your own hands, nail by nail, day after day, even if the ground underneath is scorched. And maybe that's what real strength is. Not a hard face, not the size of the gun, but showing up again tomorrow, even when your knees knock. Ever felt like life dragged you across the dirt and expected you to say thanks? Ever stared at yourself and wondered how you're still upright? Then maybe this story's yours too. So here's a thought. Do we keep ourselves small because small feels safe, or do we finally stand because we're tired of running? Drop your take in the comments. I read every one. And if this tale stirred you even a little, smash that like. It helps more folks find their way here. If you think stories like this matter, stories about grit, hope, and second chances, go on and subscribe. More is coming. Because out here in the West, people may get knocked flat, but we don't stay down. We get up. We stand. And the standing doesn't stop with one good day or one hard fight. It keeps going in the small ways. The way Caleb checked each fence rail twice. The way Mara set the coffee at first light. The way they both listened to the quiet and chose to trust it. Trouble might circle back. Old ghosts often do. But they had a plan now, a rhythm. He worked the line, kept the water flowing, watched the hills with the patience of a man who's lost and learned. She kept the cabin in order, kept the horses calm, kept her rifle oiled and close. In the evenings, when the wind bent the grass and the sky faded to copper, they'd sit on the porch and let the day settle. Sometimes they spoke. Sometimes they didn't. The quiet wasn't empty anymore. It held them both. If fear tried to creep in, it didn't root. Not like before. Because fear lives best where people stand alone, and they weren't alone now. That's the part folks miss when they talk about courage. It isn't just stepping into a fight. It's picking up the pieces after and choosing to love the work of a normal day. It's deciding you're not going to hand your life back to the ones who try to break it. Maybe you know that feeling. Maybe you've carried a rope burned the world can't see. Maybe you've been dragged and told to hush. If so, hear this. There's a place to plant your feet. There's a way to say no more and mean it, even if your voice shakes the first time. Caleb didn't plan to be anyone's savior. Mara didn't plan to be anyone's cause. They simply refused to bow to the thing that wanted them small. That refusal changes the ground you stand on. And when the next sunrise rolled across those hills, it didn't wash away the scars, but it lit them in a kinder light. The cabin still smelled like dust and ashen horse. The porch still creaked. The work stayed hard. But between one heartbeat and the next, they had made something you could call peace. Not the quiet that comes when danger gets bored, but the kind you make and hold, even when the world rattles your door. If you've been walking with us through this tale, you already know. Clean endings are for bedtime stories. Real life is splinters and mended boards, bruises that fade and memory that doesn't. Yet even there, good can take root. So don't stop here. Keep going with us. There are more ridges to ride, more storms to wait out, more mornings where coffee tastes like a promise. If this story found you at the right time, tap like so others can find it, too. And if you believe the West still has room for grit and hope and second chances, hit subscribe and stay close. Because the sun keeps rising, the wind keeps talking in the tall grass, and out here, when we fall, we don't stay down. We stand.